In Final Fantasy VII, the question of Cloud's true love has always been debated for decades at this point. While some argue for his childhood friend Tifa Lockhart, when taking a closer look at the game, developer interviews, and extended materials, it all suggests that Cloud's heart truly belongs to Aerith. Now, I just want to preface that I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I'm not here to try to convince you to like another pairing. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm simply here for the sole fact of explaining my perspective and why I think Aerith is objectively the better choice for Cloud, and more specifically that she's actually the canon love interest. And again, I want to preface that I'm not here to make you think otherwise. It's more than okay for you to like Cloud and Tifa as a pairing. There's quite literally nothing wrong with that. I, however, do want to also acknowledge that I'm also biased, but I've also come from the perspective of being a former Cloud Tifa shipper. So right off the bat, if you've played the original game, everyone knows how the story goes. Cloud grew up in Nibelheim with Tifa, even though they weren't really close as friends, despite what their false memories might have said otherwise. And then Cloud is now a quote-unquote ex-soldier in the present day. He gets reunited with Tifa. He joins Avalanche as a merc. And then Cloud comes tumbling down from the roof and stumbles upon Aerith's flower bed in the church. Almost immediately you can see how Aerith's personality, her very upbeat and bubbly personality, is almost alien to Cloud. He's not used to somebody taking that much of an interest in him or wanting to really spend time with him, but he doesn't unwelcome it. He is caught off guard by her demeanor, but we see throughout the game that it's her very personality and her ability to break down his shells is what makes Cloud become more of his true self. And as the developers have said themselves, that from the moment Cloud meets Aerith, there's an undeniable connection. In fact, the developers themselves have emphasized how Aerith changes Cloud. And while obviously one could argue that in a relationship you shouldn't have to change for your partner, but I'd argue that both Aerith and Cloud change each other for the better. The more they spend time together, there are different aspects of themselves that they didn't know existed. It isn't brought into fruition until they start spending more time together and become closer even in the short time that they've known each other. Yoshinori Kitatse, which is one of the directors for Final Fantasy VII, even describes Aerith as Cloud's light. And Nojima, a scenario writer for Final Fantasy VII, confirmed in reunion files that Aerith has the strongest influence on Cloud compared to anybody else. And while again I mentioned that people claim that the devs have said that Cloud is his most self with Tifa, I'd honestly strongly argue against that. And I say that because even throughout the original game, we see how Tifa really holds on to that promise that he made to her as they were kids, in which she basically asks Cloud to be her hero if and when the day comes that she's in danger, she needs help, that she wants him to come and rescue her. And while obviously there's nothing wrong with this, a lot of people like to argue that Cloud only does this for the sake of impressing Tifa. I'd say that's maybe only like a fraction of it. And I'm not gonna outright deny that he didn't want to impress her to some extent, but in the original game itself, it's quite literally said that he wants to be a hero just like Sephiroth. Additionally, we see that even Cloud himself did not necessarily care, but he didn't really think much of that promise because he pretty much forgotten about it. He seemingly didn't really think of it all that seriously as maybe Tifa did. Whereas when Aerith, she asks him to, like in Remake, right? She's like promise, like you'll do this for me, you'll be my bodyguard and I'll make it up to you with one date. He doesn't object it and he takes his job very seriously. And I know people like to argue that, well, it's just a friendly thing, or oh, it's because he thinks that Aerith is weak. And well, sure, he probably thought that initially. It's pretty obvious that even Cloud himself realizes like, damn, no, I'm severely underestimating this girl, but I'm going to take this seriously because I want that date with her. He wants to spend time with her, and obviously Aerith wants to spend time with him as well. Another thing too that people, they always like to bring, and I can't help but feel like it's just because of there's so much mistranslation with the English translation. Certain subtleties and context, subtext, whatever, it gets taken away, it's stripped away from it because of the translation. Sometimes things aren't translated directly, but more just like what's the closest thing to it, or just sometimes something that's not even what was originally said. The only real big example I can really think of at the top of my head was kind of when they show the second best dress for Aerith, and she asks him along the lines of like, oh, like, do you think I look good, or like, do you really like this dress? And in the English version, he just kind of goes like, like he does like a noise. But in the actual, like the original translation Japanese text, he says like, yeah, like he nods in agreement. And obviously I know that's a little thing. Then we also have it where in Rebirth, during one of the side quests in Costa del Sol with Cloud and Aerith, where they have to do side quests for these girls who, you know, want to find a couple that kind of fits what they're going for. Like they want to get inspiration from them to make swimsuits for their fashion show, right? And Aerith tells him like, oh, like, yeah, I'm gonna treat this as a date. And Cloud's like, I wish you wouldn't. And people think that as like, mind you, people take this literally, and they always do this a lot of time with Cloud and Aerith. They take things too literally, and they don't bother, you know, reading into it, like being more analytical towards it. And again, I'm not here to force somebody to do that, but I think it's a shame because people miss out, like genuinely, they miss out a lot of what makes this game really compelling and interesting, because they refuse to acknowledge what the true plot and narrative of the game is. Because again, even drawing back to the original game, the game has always been about Cloud, Aerith, and Sephiroth. Those are the three main characters. And obviously, you know, there's supporting characters, there's secondary characters, but people hear the word secondary and they think that that suddenly means that they're not important, or that they're the worst, like they're irrelevant. And it's like, no, I don't think any character, with the exception of maybe some, I wouldn't say that they're non-important, right? However, and this will be a topic for another day, but I just wish that Tifa had more to do rather than just being tied to Cloud. Like almost everything she kind of says or does is for the sake of Cloud's character development and not for her own per se. Yeah, like I was hoping in Rebirth, right, Tifa would become more confident and more so, you know, she realized like, no, I don't need Cloud to be my hero. I can be my own hero. I can save other people. I can be the hero that I've always wanted someone to be for me. I want to give that back and do that for others instead. Super. I think it would have been perfect for Tifa. However, like I said in Rebirth, they kind of did that, but I feel like they doubled down because again, it just ties back to Cloud. And I'm not even saying it's a bad thing because I don't like Cloud. No, I think it's fine that Tifa wants to, you know, be the hero for Cloud this time around. Like, oh, you saved me, I'm gonna save you now. Again, nothing wrong with that. I think it's fine. Everything works. However, I just don't think that it's the romantic win people think, because it's like, Tifa, get up. Like, pick yourself up, girl. You don't need Cloud. Like, he doesn't deserve you. Especially because, given the fact that mind you, in the original game, right, we have like that brief moment where Cloud's like possessed and he attacks Aerith, and people, certain delusional and deranged fans, like to take that as like, fuck yeah, Aerith gets fucking stabbed by Cloud, he fucking hates her, right? But it's like, but you don't bring that logic when they changed it up in Rebirth, where possessed Cloud is the one who attacks Tifa. And like, mind you, he like fucking fucking stabs her practically. Like, he like cuts her up, kind of, you know. And like maybe an hour or so later after that happens, Tifa's just like, so anyways, I'm in love with you and I want to kiss you and I want to be your hero because you saved me. Even though again, you literally just stabbed me, but you're still my hero and I want to be your hero now. Again, it's a little odd. I know I could just be very much reading too much into it, but I just feel like it's weird. And again, specifically more so because if this happened with Cloud and Aerith, mind you, I still would have found it very weird, very out of character. But secondly, people would have been, you know, again, like those weird fans who for whatever reason hate the fuck out of, like, they just hate Aerith so much, right? And they're like, fuck yeah, like Cloud tried to fucking kill her. This just proves that Cloud T's canon. Like, I just feel like it's weird, and there's a lot of double standards with the fandom. But again, that's a topic for another day. Another thing I'd like to bring up too is there's just so much blatant romantic tropes that Cloud and Aerith pertain to or relate to. I don't know if that's the right word, but they are so clearly soulmates. My guy, their names are literally, they're intertwined. Cloud represents the sky, you know, clouds in the sky, cloud strife. Aerith, and because we know Aerith is etc., people who are like basically connected one with the planet, Aerith, Earth, it works. It's where their names come from. We literally have the sky and Earth. Like, how much in your face can it get, right? The other thing too is there's just so much that is so straightforward in the game, and yet so many people like to ignore it just because it's not their cup of tea. And again, it's fine if it's not your cup of tea. It's fine if you don't want these two characters to be together romantically. That is fine. There is nothing wrong with that. But in the fucking trailer for the game, the original game, it literally pans a shot where it's like a story of love, and it shows Cloud and Aerith. Like, it's so obvious. Like, I don't understand why people still try to argue that there's nothing there between Cloud and Aerith. Like, it just never made sense to me. Like, and mind you, I used to be a very big Cloud-Tifa shipper, or like the very least, like I was like, yeah, this is canon. This is what everyone told me was the perfect ship, the canon ship, if you will. And I played the original game myself, and I was like, I'm supposed to prefer that over this. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't. Again, you're telling me I'm supposed to like this pairing just because they're quote unquote childhood friends, but newsflash, they're not. That's literally one of the biggest plot twists in the fucking game. You're telling me I'm supposed to be pining after this girl who, again, we're not even actually childhood friends, you know, fine and dandy, whatever, right? But then the moment that he meets this other girl, he's kind of like, Tifa, who? Like, oh, Tifa, my girlfriend? No, she's not my girlfriend. It's like, oh, but she's someone special. Nope. Sorry, but no. I'm romancing Tifa this entire game, and then in the original game, Kate says just like, yeah, by the way, you Cloud and Aerith, you guys are so compatible. Your star signs align, and you guys are meant to be. And it's not optional, and it's said regardless of whether or not you're romancing Tifa. To add more to that is just the fact that when you play the original Final Fantasy VII game, there is obviously, again, an affection mechanic, and Aerith starts off with the most affection points. It's almost like she's just the narrative. Their relationship is quite literally the narrative of the story. The game is about Cloud and Aerith and Sephiroth. Like, that's just how it is. Then they always bring up those flowers where like, oh, lovers used to give these to each other when they were reunited. And, you know, Cloud and Aerith, they met on Loveless Street, a fucking play about a fated yet doomed love. Lovers bound to be reunited in one way or another. And that play is always being associated with Cloud and Aerith. Even in Rebirth, there's really this scene, right, where if you get Aerith to be Rosa, the main character of that play, they hug each other at the end, they embrace each other at the end of the play, and it's literally like a one-for-one recreation of their hug at the end of the, like near the end of the game, when Aerith and Cloud are back in their place, their spot, and she hugs him and he hugs her back, and I'm like, dude, it's quite literally a very blatant, obvious parallel. In that said play, there's even the part where Aerith's character, Rosa, she tells Alfred, Cloud's character, like, must you go? And he talks about how he has loved ones that are waiting for him, but she mustn't worry because he knows that he will come back and be reunited with her. Like, he knows that they will meet again. Aerith's fucking song, and I know what people are gonna say, but the dev said that it could be technically about everybody. The songwriter and the singer also said it's about Cloud and Aerith's relationship. Like, it could be, you know, considered for everybody, but it's, again, very obviously pertaining to Cloud and Aerith's relationship, about how they don't need any promises to be reunited because she knows that they'll be together forevermore one way or another. They will meet again. And again, the yellow flowers, the yellow lilies that Aerith has, they signify reunion. And what flowers does Cloud fall in when Cloud and Aerith meet each other again after seeing each other for the first time in Loveless Street? In a fucking flower patch, a flower bed of yellow lilies. Like, it can't get any more in your face. Like, I'm sorry, but it just can't. So it never makes sense to me that it's so obvious that, you know, again, Aerith doesn't want to believe, like, again, this is going into Rebirth. Aerith doesn't want to just think that them meeting is fate, but like, what drew them so close to each other? Like, they barely knew each other, and yet they got along so well. And Aerith was able to break down what so many couldn't. She was able to bring out little bits of Cloud's more human side, his true self, that Tifa couldn't bring out ever. Nobody could really bring that out. Like, truth be told. Because again, in the basic way I can simplify it, Tifa just enables Cloud's soldier persona. Whereas with Aerith, yes, she's obviously initially drawn to him at first because of his similarities to Zack, but she says so herself, like, you are not him, and that's okay. Because right now, she wants to be with him. She wants to meet the real him. They're literally the sun and moon. Aerith represents warmth, vibrancy, hope, whereas Cloud initially is very cold, traumatized, and so guarded, like he just can't open up. And Aerith brings out that softer side to him. It's very clear that Aerith changes Cloud for the better. Like, there's really no denying that. And again, I think choosing to ignore the effect that Aerith has on Cloud and vice versa, and how the story, the narrative, has always been about Cloud and Aerith, I think you just miss out on genuinely one of the most beautiful love stories ever. It just never makes sense to me that people want to argue that, well, Aerith is dead, so therefore Cloud's gonna move on and be with Tifa. Which I'm like, first of all, I feel like that's such a very misogynistic way to look at it. Like, you think Tifa's only purpose in the game is just to be with Cloud, and I think that's stupid. Genuinely, I think it's really fucking dumb. Not only that, but I'm like, so you want Tifa to just be a rebound? Like, that's doing her, again, it's very misogynistic. It's just doing her dirty. And again, if we're going even after the fact that Aerith is dead, in Advent Children, Cloud and Tifa do not get together. The devs always like to say, actually, I kind of see them getting together, but then they backtrack and they're like, actually, no, they would not work out even without the existence of Sephiroth or Geostigma, that fucking, that plague that like took over, right? And that Aerith was the one who fucking cured everybody. She saved the world again. Acting like Aerith isn't an important character, isn't the narrative, it's just dumb. I don't care if you don't ship Cloud and Aerith. That's not my issue, and it's never been my issue. People are allowed to like what they like, but I think undermining her importance when, even though, again, people like to say, she's just disc 1 girl, she dies in the first disc. It doesn't matter. It's so obvious that the game itself tells you just that she's still important, that her presence still lingers, her consciousness lives on through Cloud, even in Advent Children. From the spin-off games, from World of Final Fantasy, they literally outright said, they say that, like, Cloud talks about how, like, yeah, like, I need to get my revenge. This guy, Sephiroth, he took someone away from me forever. And then Terra in her chibi-ass little body says, this is no way to honor her memory, though, to take your love for her and turn it into hate. That's not what she would have wanted. And they just say love outright. And no one, and you can't just deny and say, no, it's about Tifa, because no, Tifa is alive. And again, in Dissidia, like, Cloud's true wish, his desire, is to be with Aerith again. It's even said at the end of the fucking original game. It's said at the end of the fucking game that the promised land, he thinks he can meet her there. Who the fuck do you think it's about? And again, this is said even if you decide to romance Tifa. Like, I don't know, man. I think that's kind of fucked up. And again, I just feel like it does Tifa so much disservice. Again, then there's also the whole communication issue between them that, again, if I really wanted to, I can make a whole video about why I just don't think Cloud and Tifa work out romantically. Obviously, I know they have romantic feelings for each other at different intervals of their life. You know, I'm not gonna deny that. I'm not gonna act like there's nothing there, you feel me? It's so blatantly obvious that Aerith is just the true love interest for Cloud. We have fucking spin-off games where Cloud and Aerith are paired up as a couple. We have them as Emperor, Empress, bride and groom. We have them have matching outfits for other Final Fantasy couples in Ever Crisis. It exists, and it's so in your face, and it's so dumb to just act like it's not there, doesn't exist. And now for the final kicker, if you will, we're gonna be talking about Rebirth, just because I feel like it needs to be said. There's so much things I feel like I didn't say, but I also just don't want to script this video too much because I feel like it was not gonna flow as properly as I would have wanted to. So here, if you haven't played Rebirth yet, just don't even watch this part. You can skip it, right? Or unless you don't mind spoilers, which I don't know why I'd have to spoiler it. The year came out like almost a year ago, but that's besides the point. Anyways, so in Rebirth, right, obviously we know as Final Fantasy fans that the remake trilogy, they are changing things up a decent bit. Some changes better than others, but again, that's another topic for another day. That being said, in the beginning portion of Rebirth, it's pretty much established that Cloud and Aerith are pretty much going on a bunch of non-optional dates together. There's the clock tower date that they go on, and then again, if you choose Aerith, if you romance Aerith during the entirety of the game, then we go on to the gondola date. Aerith's date is like pretty much a one-for-one recreation of it. She tells him straight up, you did remind me of Zack, but you're not him, and that's okay because she wants to be with him. And if you get the high affection scene, it cues to Aerith like snuggling up close with Cloud, and Cloud's caught off guard, like he gets nervous, and he's like, Aerith, and she's like, just till the ride is over. And then we get what I'd argue is one of the most romantic scenes, maybe not in all of Final Fantasy, but it's definitely up there. You have Cloud for once being the one to initiate affection towards Aerith, and he takes her hand and he holds it, and they intertwine fingers, and they just kind of sit there in silence enjoying each other's company. And this is very significant because, as I mentioned before, in Aerith's song that she sings during the play, she talks about like, take my hand and never let me go. And even in Hollow, right, which is a song that's from Cloud's perspective talking about Aerith, and he says like, it also mentions something along the lines of like holding on to you, never letting you go. And again, like I just cannot fathom how people just don't see it. I feel like it's so blatantly obvious. If, again, and this sounds rude, please don't take this wrong, but if you just play the game, like if you just don't let your biases hold you back, if you play it with an open mind, and again, you don't have to do this, nobody has to do this, I'm just saying, again, you miss out on a lot of beautiful elements of the game if you just come in already hating what's going to happen, or like just being so negative, right? Then we move on to, there's the part where Cloud is like getting possessed again, and it isn't until he sees the sight of Aerith in danger, it flashes back to when he first met her, and he instantly thinks of the first time he saw her, and the whispers were like swarming her, and it breaks what's like the curse. It's really like the trope of love breaks the curse. He goes to catch her, and then they come falling down, and they wake up, and it's the dream sequence. And Aerith is a lot more outwardly flirty and like cutesy towards Cloud, which he's not opposed to it, but he's like, this feels not like you, like what's going on, and then there's even the part where Cloud is like, oh, like let's go take pictures together and be the cute couple, and he even gets like mad almost that like they didn't win the photo competition. And there's also the part where he gets frustrated that he can't himself pick a gift for Aerith. It's almost like the illusion of choice, which is something that I will say time and time again. You can choose whoever you want to date, but at the end of the day, you are not Cloud. Whoever you decide to romance, that is your feelings. Your feelings and your attachment to certain characters doesn't affect the game. And it's more apparent because, again, I've seen so many angry streamers, they get pissed off when they've been romancing Tifa the entire time, and then it cuts to this dream date sequence, and they're like, what? He's supposed to be holding hands with Tifa! And it's just like, no, my guy. The gondola dates, even though, again, they are considered not canon, they're just considered their own little side thing according to the devs. It's just very telling that Aerith's date is the only one that is like a near one-for-one recreation. Because, as the devs have said, you can interpret it how you want. Cloud and Aerith are not like siblings, and everything that is in the game is intended for a reason. It is there for a reason, and while they may be open to other ideas, that doesn't change what their ideas and their visions are for the game. Then we cut to the end of the dream date. Aerith brings it back to their spot, and he was like, yeah, that was easy. And we essentially get, I wouldn't say a half-assed confession, but we do get a love confession from Aerith that she does really like Cloud, but she kind of bounces around her confession for his sake because, again, she knows that her time is coming to an end and she doesn't want Cloud to feel like it is his fault for what's about to happen. He tells him, like, whatever happens, don't blame yourself. But Cloud is confused by this, and he just embraces the moment, embraces Aerith even. Then after this all happens, Aerith, gives him the materia, the holy materia, and she says that this isn't about me, this is about saving the world and you, because she does not want anything bad to happen to Cloud. She wants to save him and along all the other friends she's made. And we see that Aerith's about to fucking go against Sephiroth. The end of the game, where Cloud is, face to face with Aerith, and here comes Sephiroth from the heavens coming to smite Aerith. And while it seems like at first that he saves her, it turns out while he might have in one timeline, he doesn't in this one. So he has to see his loved one die in his arms, bleed out to death. And we get snippets of him saying the same speech that he says in the original game. And then we cut to where Aerith is somehow seemingly still alive in his vision, and she's like happy that he came, and he's happy that she's somehow, seemingly okay. And he promises that he's got this, like he'll defeat Sephiroth for her. And even in the Japanese translation, the original translation, he says, "Wait for me," almost like telling her, like, it'll be over soon, like, and we'll be together, we'll be fine. And the final boss battle is him and Aerith fighting against Sephiroth. And at the end of their victory, we see a very familiar shot where they're standing back to back. This time, they hold each other's hands, calling back to their gondola date, which again kind of proves the point that their date is considered the canon one, because they hold hands intertwined again. They held hands during their dream date, so it all ties together. And the last little dialogue we get with them is a callback to their first date, where he asks, like, "Are you sure you're gonna be okay getting back?" And she's like, "Oh, and if I said I wasn't?" And he chuckles at this because, like, they even have inside jokes now. Like, normally he would have never laughed at something like that, and now here he is, clearly such a changed person from who he was at the beginning of the game. And it's because of Aerith that he experiences this growth as a character. We see Cloud promising that he will stop Sephiroth, and it's just calling back to, like, even though he's promising this, they don't need promises to know that they will be reunited. He promises to defeat Sephiroth, but no promises are needed for them to know that they will meet again. And now that you've digested all of this, I hope that maybe, you can understand why I feel so strongly or so inclined to make this video. Why I think that, it's fine to have your own shipping preferences. Shipping is always just for fun at the end of the day. As long as it's not problematic, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, there is no issue with that. But as I've said over and over again, I think purposely acting like there's nothing there between them, and that the story isn't telling an obvious tale, it isn't highlighting a specific couple, is just missing out on a very compelling and beautiful story about love and loss. And that's why I feel that Cloud Strife's true love interest is Aerith.